我们路易赛表现得不好，觉得我们要比 FB 强，所以我们不敢输。
I don't actually think we did that well. I think we could definitely perform much better than we did.
I think that our team performed beyond expectations for me. I think we'll just continue to improve and get better over time.
Creo que por más que Nicky sea un buen jugador, creo que tengo lo necesario como para matcharlo. Aparte, yo fui el que sacó el primer pentakill del mundial, así que creo que él debería estar nervioso más que yo.
不动之宝如入无问之际，一个滑板鞋往前飞，拼命的叠毛，最后扯死一个 triple kill， 这最后头铁给了一个5杀 pentakill。2017英雄联盟全球总决赛第一个5杀，由 Lyon Gaming 的 ADC Wild Lutos 拿到。
I guess it's pretty impressive to get the first penta. It was against Gambit though, they kind of seemed to have faltered a bit.
过来大招大的是君子，君子这边被定住，又一个2连起来，血鬼前面真正将那个闪现被落的95场中给保下来了，那完了，没了血鬼，这边的战场感觉要崩盘了。
Como el personaje es ella, le gana a los rivales más fuertes, pienso que nosotros vamos a hacer lo mismo y le podemos ganar a Cloud9.
I hope Lyon's ready for a safe fight room as they get eliminated from Worlds.
虽然我们在 LNS 不被看好，但是我们会用实力证明我们自己。这也不会是我们的全球总决赛的重点。
I really think that for the best of 5, we'll be the best version of ourselves. Even though HKA is a really strong team, I think we will end their Worlds dreams right here, right now.
Hello and welcome back to Worlds 2017 live from Wuhan, China. Over the next 2 days, 8 teams will be fighting for the 4 remaining spots in the group stage. Earlier today, of course, we saw the stadium getting ready. The fans in Wuhan excited to see some teams play live. Cloud9 jumping into the stadium and Lyon looking focused for the match ahead of them.
Tough road if they're trying to make it to the group stage of Worlds, with C9 looking like the most dominant team thus far in the playing stage.
Yeah, and Lyon looked like the best second seed coming out of the group stage, and now playing those elimination matches.
All right, I'm excited to see it as well. Well, hello everyone, I'm Daniel Dracos, and who better to join me for a clash of North American teams than Aiden, Zyrene, Moon, and Mark Z as well.
Yeah, bit of NA bias maybe on the desk a little bit, so hopefully we'll try and keep it a little fair.
Yeah, it's hard to be biased in favor of NA when you got ousted from it, so I understand.
Let's go. Can we wait? Can we wait to see how Fnatic plays before I like set sail and like throw me under the bus here at least?
Yeah, you still got a little bit of hope, right?
A little bit remaining. All right. Well, before we get into our first match, let's get a reminder of what teams or what it's going to take for these teams to get to the group stage. First up, it's an all-American clash as North America's Cloud9 faces off against Latin American North's Lyon Gaming, followed by EU's 3rd seed Fnatic aiming to take down Hong Kong Attitude from the LMS. And when we return tomorrow, we've got 1907 Fenerbahce versus Team 1 and Team WE brawling it out against Young Generation. Well, as the battle for groups plays out, let's take a look at this week's Best of the Rift presented by T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. Now, these are the players that we think could make or break their team's dreams of promoting to the next stage of Worlds. And first up for Cloud9, it's going to be Contracts.
Contracts has been an absolute monster for them. He's #1 in team percent of damage for junglers at 26%, averages about 17%. But seriously, this is a big step up for him. He was already a high damage jungler, but now at Worlds, his rookie performance here, he's looking incredible.
I think that's the big thing too, is just he is a rookie. His spring split underperformed by most people's expectations. By summer, you could argue he was the second best player for Cloud9. I think here at Worlds, he's cementing that fact that he really is the de facto #2 player behind Jensen.
And it's really helped them because 2-on-2s in mid are something you don't want to take against Cloud9. Trying to shut down Jensen has been a strategy some people have tried to employ, but Contract stepping up kind of prevents that.
Have to see how he does in his matchup against Lyon, but next on our list it is going to be 1907 Fenerbahce's Thaldrun, veteran leader for this team in so many ways.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many good players on this team, but Thaldrun stands out to me as the complete rock. Doesn't feel like he's had a single bad performance this entire time. While Padden may take a little bit to turn online, then he gets these penta kills. Frozen has been a little up or down in the early laning phase. Thaldrun is the guy every time playing well.
It's funny because, like, calling him a rock sometimes sounds like you're saying he doesn't have these high highs, but when I watch Thaldrun, it just looks like this guy always knows where to be. His Maokai ultimates on mid have allowed Frozen to get through the laning phase with an advantage, and then Padden gets those pentakills off of the ultimate, off of the play from Thaldrun, and I feel like this guy has been the facilitator for the team in team fights.
Absolutely. Just look at that mid play. It's so intelligent the way he wraps behind, sets his team up for a kill. Not like this, oh my god, how did he come up with this play? But it's these kind of consistent things that he gives his team to be able to get leads.
That's what I love about it, is consistent, because I've seen him make that play on Maokai and Galio like 4 times now in 4 games. So Thaldrun has been very methodical with when he gets his lead in lane. How does he spread that across the map as a tank?
Yeah, I'm just excited to see what he can do tomorrow. If he can keep that consistency up, what he's going to look like against Team 1. When we look at our next player, a similar playmaker, a similar consistent force for Fnatic, it's going to be Jesus coming in.
Absolutely. He was a large part of why they were able to dominate bot lane in 3 out of their 4 games. And then the one time they struggled, it really didn't feel like it was on him at all. He's also been a huge factor in their late game comebacks. So Jesus has really stepped up over the course of this tournament, being a large factor in their playmaking.
Yeah, Jesus was a player that, was a mid laner before, was at Worlds, was a coach for Immortals last year, and then he came in as a support with the lane swap or the role swap, and he's been looking fantastic with those engages and knowing when to take them.
Feels like a guy who has a lot more perspective on the game than some other people, just having played so many different roles, held so many different positions in teams, that he has this kind of like higher level thinking about the game that goes beyond just like, what do I do as my player or as my champion that I'm piloting?
And it's something that Fnatic have needed when they've had individual roles starting to fall through. Jesus being a rock has been very crucial for them. But finally, from young generation, our last player on the list is going to be Pallet. A similar story for supports, consistency being the key here.
Absolutely. I think when you look at young generation, they had that rough day 1. They completely bounced back in game 2. Pallet was someone who was able to step up in both of those games and was able to really give them that kind of need to avoid having to play any tiebreakers.
Yeah, and as we look forward, he's going to be playing against Team WE, who really heavily rely on Mystic during the mid parts of the game after getting him through the lane phase. And he might be up against Zero on support, who got subbed in for Team WE, and they looked better. So we're definitely looking at Pallet moving forward for what he can do for this bottom lane on young generation.
I'm honestly just ready for the 2v2s. I'm ready for people to kill each other in that bottom lane. I am so excited to see how this guy stacks up against Zero. But from the first buff till the final Baron, follow the best of the Rift in more places than ever. T-Mobile, America's best unlimited network. Now, of course, we are going to get into our first match of the day, Cloud9 versus Lyon Gaming. Regardless of today's match, let's take a moment. Let's revel in the fact that a third North American team is getting to groups no matter what happens.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad they didn't have to play against a European and stop them from going.
Yeah, of course. Always want to look forward to that.
Please. But, of course, when we look at these two teams, Lyon Gaming came out swinging. They were looking so strong right off the bat, and I feel like a lot of that is due to some of their team history.
Yeah, I think that Lyon actually have a lot more history than just the 9 regional titles, right? Back when Challenger was starting, I remember them being on the ranked 5s ladder. They are very familiar with North American teams. They scrimmed a whole bunch of Challenger teams all throughout the years. They've scrimmed NALCS teams, and they've even back at MSI scrimmed international teams and had some international performances in wildcard tournaments. So they've always had inspiration or aspirations to be an international power, but this is the chance for them to finally prove that after the 9 regional domestic titles.
And it's been a long road for them, like you said, 9 titles, lots of international competition. It feels like they still haven't quite had that breakout performance where they grab the world's attention and force them to recognize them for how good they are. It's been a good start so far, kind of looking really strong in the play-in stage and being arguably the best second seed to come out of groups, but they still have a little bit more work to do.
And, of course, today, they could be in for some very quick games. Cloud9 looking like one of the most dominant teams in the group stage. It's going to be a scary opponent.
Yeah, absolutely. C9 averaged the fastest game time at Worlds so far, 26.5 minutes. They were also the fastest win team in North America domestically, so they got even better at it, and it's going to be very difficult, especially with Jensen and Contracts looking like they're playing so well.
Yeah, and when they're going up against somebody like Audi, who has very low jungle proximity, very low damage in the early parts of the game, Contracts has an advantage there. But Seiya versus Jensen is a little bit where I'm looking for that even matchup. If Seiya can go even there, then it might give kind of Cloud9 something to worry about, because playing around Jensen is most successful for them, and we saw them a little bit exposed. It didn't end the game, but having Sneaky be exploited in the bottom lane with White Lotus as his opponent.
Yeah, that's the other thing, too, is just if they don't fail to find one of these places to exploit other than mid lane, C9 are very good about closing out in the mid game, which is something that feels like they might have struggled a little bit for Lyon Gaming, where while they had those leads versus WE, they didn't close out so quickly.
Yeah, and of course, Lyon Gaming surprised us when they were able to go toe-to-toe with WE, and we have to wonder if they can stay even in the same way in the early game as Cloud9, which is a tough ask. Can they go even in the mid game when it comes to team fighting, when it comes to putting White Lotus into action?
Well, both these teams are number 2 and number 3, with Cloud9 being the number 2 one, in how many kills and assists they get from team fights, not the lane phase or skirmishes, just full-on brawls. So these teams are very bloody when it comes to the mid game, but what we saw from Cloud9 is once they do have 1 or 2 fights, that's how they end the game, and that's why they have such a fast average game time. But Lyon have shown they can match WE. Can they match Cloud9 here in that team fighting? And that's the big thing I'm looking for here.
I think it's also important to have like a good game plan moving into the actual series, because we've seen don't try and fight Jensen in the mid lane with Contracts. That's what they do best, and you're opting into that play style. It goes horribly wrong. Don't try and meet a freight train head on, go around it, something like that. And they have options, like you said, with White Lotus looking really good, as well as the fact that Gerald does play a fair amount of carries. And so if you find find that the White Lotus game plan is going, you can try and pivot to taking Jaces and things like that and snowballing against Impact, who has been a little susceptible to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to see exactly how the top lane matchup will unfold, because that's something that Team 1 tried, didn't necessarily work out for them, but I'm really hoping that Giral can show us just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been a little quiet compared to the rest of his teammates, but he has been playing very well as well. So he hasn't been picking quite as the aggressive stuff we're used to seeing. He could opt back into that, like I was saying.
Well, we're going to find out with the Rift almost set. Let's send it over to Captain Flowers and Rusty to get our first series underway.